What's up, guys? I'm Callum, and welcome back to the Tri-Time Podcast YouTube channel. It's just me today, just Callum, no Matt, but this is a very championship-focused video, so I think, just as a disclaimer before we get into the video, there will be a lot more of this sort of bonus content, I guess you could call it, where we'll have the usual Wednesday, Saturday structure. In this video, like it has today, has fallen on a Saturday, it may fall on a sort of Thursday, Friday, and it's probably maybe not even going to be every week, but it's just going to be me, obviously as a Bradford fan, more Championship, Matt is Leeds fan, more Super League, maybe like a weekly roundup sort of thing, which we will have in the main podcast as well, but it might be a bit more in-depth sort of stats and that sort of thing, looking at how the table's looking, favourites and things like that. So yeah, I guess this is really the first video of the 2021 season for us. Obviously, we've had all the problems last year. It's been such a hard start for us with the podcast coming up. We've really got into a groove of it starting last season, then lockdown and everything happened. It's really thrown us off a stride, but we're ready for 2021 season if it does go ahead and when that does go ahead and everything like that. So we're getting started today with, I guess it is a question of sort of, is Ben JonesBishop the best championship signing? Obviously, there's been a lot of good signings. This is a recent one that really has sort of, I've seen it on sort of social media, people have been talking about it, saying that York have got a really strong squad this year, as well as a couple of other teams who have. Just a disclaimer before we do get really into it, this is not covering every signing every team's made, every outgoing, because we will have a video on that, me and Matt, where we will rank every team in the championship on sort of who's done the best business, ingoings, outgoings, who's done the worst. So that is to come as well. This is sort of overviewing the top end, the Super League signings, and how this shapes up for the top of the championship, or the teams we expect to be at the top of the championship, should I say. So I guess we really just get straight into it. So you're looking at Ben JonesBishop. I think he's an interesting phenomenon, really, because he's a player that, he seems like he's been around a while. Obviously, he's 32 years old, and obviously been in Super League for that time. And he's a grand final winner. At Leeds he was really good, but obviously injuries have set him back. He suffered a depressed, fractured skull early on in his career, and it's really set him back, I think, with just certain injuries. Obviously last season he had the problems with a blood clot on his lungs, which was awful, obviously, but he did come back and play in 8 of Trinity's last 11 matches last season, so that's positive. So I think in terms of injury, I mean, obviously you can see the stats up on the screen for his last 3 seasons. Games played, 2019 season he did fulfill that, and then obviously he's had these problems. So going off that, maybe it's an injury away, but in the championship, maybe it's not as fast of a league, maybe it's not as much of a problem for him. I don't know if, as a York fan, I'd be worried about him being injured. I think on the surface it is a really good sign. I mean, if we're looking at some of these stats, 2018 season, I think really highlights the fact I'm trying to make here, that he played 21 games. Yes, that's not every Super League game in that season, but he scored 16 tries, and that is incredible, really. You won't see many players that have done better than that in a season, especially on such low games. 2019 season, obviously played 8 extra games, he scored 6 less tries, which is fine. I think it's important to note that you probably put Ben JonesBishop in maybe one of a more successful team than Wakefield have been over these seasons. Wakefield are a team that at the minute have recently been struggling, so you've always got to think about that when you're sort of looking at how good a player is, especially a winger, because I think the eye test he'll tell you when you watch Ben JonesBishop that he's a strong runner with the ball, and he can finish. He's exactly what you want with a winger. Safe under high ball, he can return kicks, that sort of thing. Really good winger. So obviously 2020 season, only played 8 of the last 11 games for Wakefield, scored 3 tries in that as well, and like I said, this is I don't want to say struggling Wakefield side, because they still do hold their own at times, definitely in Super League, but it's not like he's got, Matt Percival, Kevin Nagama popping it on the plate to him. I'm not saying Makinton and Regan Grace are only as good as they are because of that, but you know what I mean, his stats definitely could have been sort of stat padded up a bit if he was on maybe a better team, which I guess we could see that as York as one of the top teams in the championship, if that will actually happen. So 58 games over the last 3 seasons, 29 tries, I think that is really impressive. That comes out at half a try per game, I guess you could say. So every 2 games he's going to score 1 try, which I think is really impressive. I think especially at Super League level, and for a team that's, like Wakefield, I don't know the exact stats, but they probably haven't scored the most points, the most tries over that period. They're probably sort of in the bottom sort of 4 or 5 of that over them 3 seasons. So I think that's really impressive. Especially look at the injuries this guy's had. Like, he came back last year from that blood clot in the lung, and he still came out 8 games, scored 3 tries. So I can't really knock him. So I think as a player, he's 32, still got a good few years left in him. I think how good is JonesBishop? If I was to answer that question, I'd say good, and definitely good enough to smash it at championship level. So I think York have signed a really good player. So in terms of sort of looking at are York the favourites now with this signing? Let's look at some of the other signings that they have made, notable signings that is. So you've got Adam Cuthbertson from Leeds. Everyone knows what Adam Cuthbertson can do. Experienced Super League player, experience from over in Australia as well. You know what you're getting from him. Hard yards, offloading game, which from what I've seen in Championship over the last sort of 6-7 years, where it's been sort of rose up to us the higher it is, and obviously when I've been supporting Bradford down there, the offloading game can be huge when you've got some of them bigger, slower forwards in there. So I think Cuthbertson's going to rip it up. I think Morgan Smith from London, obviously he's played for London in Super League as well. Looked good when he played for him in that season as well. Obviously the experience coming from Warrington and that sort of thing. I think they've lost Connor Robinson, which obviously we're going to get into the ingoings and outgoings in a further video. But I think Morgan Smith is a top quality signing, underrated signing I would say. Then you've got another two from Wakefield, Danny Kermond and Ryan Atkins. Both experienced players, you know what you're going to get from them both. Kermond, you're going to get the hard yards. Atkins, you're going to get the bit of flair as well on the centres. And I think the fitness that these two are going to have from playing Super League their whole careers is going to be huge for York, as well as obviously the experience to bring through some of the younger York players. Then you've got Kieran Dixon at London, which I think is another underrated signing from London. You know, this guy's played Super League, he's played Championship, but he's played Championship at the top level. He knows what it means to get promoted to the Super League, and I think he can help him do that. You know, whether it's his goal kicking or just his sheer kick return out of hard yards, I think he's a quality player, to be fair, Kieran Dixon, one of the most underrated players of the Championship in the last couple of years. I think he really helped London in the year that they got promoted and in the year that there was in Super League. I know they obviously got relegated, but I think he was one of the better players in that. So I think York are the favourites. I don't know if they are the favourite, but I definitely think if you are putting them outside of that top sort of 3 or 4, I think you need to probably question yourself unless you have some other reasonable sort of explanation for that, which obviously you can put in the comments down below if you think York might flop, if you think York are going to win it all, if you think they're going to get league leaders but might struggle in the playoffs like they did do the year before last. So in terms of sort of, is a championship better than ever, I guess you could say, with some of these notable signings that the big teams are making. We've gone through York's, and I mean, I've drawn here some examples from the sort of what I would call the big teams. So these are all from the 4 other teams that applied to get into Super League. So obviously you've got York, you've got Lee, who obviously got there. These are the other 4. So, you know, if you're a Halifax fan, I know you've made some great signings. Sheffield, Swinton, Batley, Dewsbury, etc. Whitehaven especially, I'll just put a mention there. I know they've made some really good overseas signings. They will all be in this big video that we are going to do with ranking all the championship teams, transfers and that sort of thing. So let's look at some of these. So we'll start off with Bradford, 2 notable ones. Sort of these are all signings sort of from Super League, or they've signed from NRL that are bigger names. So, you know, Danny Brough, Aaron Murphy, both experienced players. Danny Brough in Arts for a team like Bradford's going to be immense, especially next to Lily. Murphy as well, whether he's back row, centre, wing, wherever you want to play him, he should be decent just for the experience, especially with some of them good young Bradford youngsters. Obviously Bradford, I don't think have signed the most notable players on here. I think you look at a team like Toulouse though, they definitely have, you know, Remy Casti signed from Catalan, what experience he's got in Super League, and I think he could still do it in Super League for probably a couple of years. I think he's immense, one of the most underrated prop forwards sort of his generation really, and he's going to be immense for Toulouse. Obviously staying in France as well, I just can't see how that could go wrong. Then you've got, you know, the 2 from Saints, Peru and Paulo. I mean, Paulo only really had sort of 1-2 years at Saints. Didn't blow you away, but from when I watched him in the NRL, you were never going to get that with him. He was just sort of a hard worker, great squad player. But I think in his Toulouse team, he's going to be sort of play a lot of minutes. He's going to be trusted in that back row, loose forward sort of positions. I think he's just going to be a bit of a workhorse. And against sort of some of the weaker championship teams, especially if they're travelling over to Toulouse, I think he's going to be absolutely immense. Then you've got Garbutt. You know what you're going to get from Garbutt. Big hit in front row. I mean, if you're looking at a team that's got Remy Casti and Mitch Garbutt as both starting props, and then Peru and Paulo as the starting second rows, I think you've got a Super League team really. Do you know what I mean? Especially with some of the other big name players that Toulouse have as well, and they already have such a good squad as it is. If I was to say a name, and I know I've seen people saying Toulouse are going unbeaten all season but might struggle in playoffs, etc. I would put my money on Toulouse to top the championship if I was a betting man right now. In terms of Fev as well, they've made some really good signings. When you look at Chris Wellham, Kopchak, Moz, all Super League experience in abundance. Wellham's been down at Championship as well with Bradford before. He knows what the crack is. He's a top player. Sort of rejuvenated himself at Salford after the drop down to Bradford. When he got signed up to Salford, people questioned whether that were a good move from them, but he's proved them right. Obviously was really good in that season as well, where they actually got to the grand final. Kopchak, he's been about. You know what you're going to get from Craig Kopchak, and same with Moores really. Really good at Castleford. Again, another underrated forward that I think just does the job. It's not the prettiest job, but it gets done, and it's the sort of thing you need in the Championship, especially when you're on these muddy pitches, Batley, Dewsbury ground. You need these sort of Craig Kopchak type players that are going to get you yards through the mud, sort of thing. They're not pretty, but they get it done. Then another one which I think's probably gone under radar a bit, Farmanu Brown, or however you say that. I'm probably, I'm not like an Australian commentator who knows how to say that, but I'm not even going to try and butcher it. But Brown from Canterbury, who they've signed, he's played for Samoa and stuff before. I've seen him play a few times. Top player, and in the Championship, you got a player coming over from Australia like that. Usually do well in the Championship, especially I think. This is a sort of player that, if you can get fans in the ground, he's going to be a fan favourite, definitely. How sort of quick he's going to be in the halves and stuff like that. Or if you play him sort of full-back. You can play him he's a sort of player you can play at hooker, half, anywhere really. I think he's going to be a top player. And then to go down to London as well, who probably haven't made the most, but I think these are impact players. So, Navarrete, he's played sort of a lot of loan rugby in the Championship. Obviously they signed him from Wigan, never really cracked it I don't think in Super League as he would have wanted, but I definitely think at London he can be a solid forward. You know what you're going to get from him, as well as I've said with the other props. Samet, big signing, one of the most sort of talked about players really from the latest Championship era, where he's sort of bounced around so many clubs, been in Super League, been in Championship, bouncing around. Obviously he was at Leeds last season, never really got going at Leeds with obviously the whole lockdown situation and all that sort of thing. But back at London, sort of where he not made his name, but sort of rejuvenated his career in the Championship, I think I'd say with Jared Samet. I think he's a top player, and you just know what you're going to get from him. I know we've obviously spoke about they've lost Morgan Smith. I think Samet's definitely an adequate replacement for that, and I think you just know what you're going to get from him. He's going to rip it up, especially if he can stay fit. So in terms of really to close then, I think, is Ben JonesBishop the best signing? I would argue no, he's not, because I think there is some better choices here. But I think I guess we just have to wait and see. If Ben JonesBishop smashes it, top try scorer in the Championship next year, and York get promoted, then he probably is the best signing. Whereas it could happen with a number of these players, and there's other players as well that have been signed that. There could be a player that's been signed that keeps Whitehaven up or something like that, and that's got to be considered a good signing. So we just don't know right now. If I was to say yes or no definite now, I'd probably say he's not the best. I don't think I could point a finger on the one that actually is the best without seeing him play on the team, but I think some of them Toulouse boys have got to be looked at and think, they're too good for the Championship, and I think Toulouse could be on the way to Super League next year. So that's it for this video, guys. So obviously, like I have said before, there is a video coming up on Wednesday, which will be the first sort of podcast of the 2021 season, Super League season preview, part 1. We'll have a few parts of that coming up. Then you'll have the Saturday video, which it should be the kit review, sort of ranking the Super League kits, that sort of thing. Always fun ones to do. And then we'll just be in this rhythm of Wednesday, Saturday, with the odd sort of Championship video either put on a Saturday or put in as an extra video. So let me know down below. Obviously, I know there's a lot of Championship fans who sort of follow this. Let me know what sort of things you want me to talk about, ranking certain players, who's got the best youngsters in the Championship, who's got the best sort of out of the old heads in the Championship, anything like that, and we'll get it done. I guess thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you're subscribing as well. We're trying to get that subscribers up to at least 100 now, and then we'll work on to the next target. If you're watching it and you're not subscribed, please do. Comment if you've enjoyed it, any sort of suggestions, and whether do you think Ben JonesBishop is the best Championship signing or not. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. See you later.